Now, joining me on the show tonight, this man covers Northern Sun for D2Football.com, the host of NSIC Weekly, Matt Witwicki. What's going on, Whit?
Good to be on with you, buddy. I like what you guys do. Kind of excited to be
that,
on.
Man. Appreciate that. It's overdue that we get you on here. I think I'm excited to get you on here, talk a little ball. We'll talk about some national stuff too, but definitely talking about your conference and what makes that so special. It's been a great year to be a fan of football over there in the Northern Sun.
Yeah, it's a season that we kind of started off a little bit slow, where the big dogs weren't necessarily playing each other every week, and now as we continue on, we're having good contests each week, and it's a question, not if Northern Sun teams are going to make the playoffs, but is there going to be three? Is there going to be four? Because there's a lot of parity in the conference towards the top. And that makes it for a real compelling follow for me, for sure.
Absolutely, and we'll get to that later for sure. And that was 4 teams from the conference in the playoffs last year, correct?
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah, and that'd be what? Bemidji, Mankato, was it Wayne and Duluth?
In Winona, you almost got all 4 there, Kobe. Not too bad for just right off the top of your head there. I like that.
Yeah. I'm getting there, and that's something where, like, now today's our first show where we've got great guests in you and Abe. Then we'll have Jimmy come on here and talk some D3 ball. We've got our new NAIA guy, Matthew, who's going to come on here and talk some NAIA ball. And then I feel like we kind of finally get a handle on things. And then I get 3 comments today. Why don't you guys cover JUCO ball?
Well, yeah, your scope can only be so wide right now, but I'm with you.
It's tough. But let's jump into the national scene a little bit. We talked with Abe, almost exclusively about that Anchor Bone game, but give me kind of just the preliminary thoughts from you and the guys about that contest and any big key takeaways you had from it.
Oh, they played a game this weekend? I missed that.
I think, I don't know if anyone actually promoted it at all.
No, I watched the game, and I mean, great game. I mean, Grand Valley gets out right out of the gate, throwing big punches, taking shots down the field. And, I thought Ferris looked like they just got off Willie Nelson's tour bus at the start of the game there, but, it took them a little while. They were disoriented, and then 35 donut with 12 minutes left to go in the second quarter. And we were on with Scott Wooster, the head coach of Grand Valley, last night, kind of asked him.
Catch a little bit of that.
Yeah, it kind of presents a little bit, Kobe, of a now what? Okay, we're up 35 on the Dragon over here, and at some point we're not going to sleep. They're going to wake up. So let's get this game moving as fast as we can. And all of a sudden, 35-21 at half, and there was a little bit of little things got a little chesty, at halftime between the squads. They had to be separated, and it was kind of like set up drama for the second half. And, I've mentioned that this matchup, each time they play now, it's almost like the Super Bowl of D2. It really is. And so the second half gets going, and, Grand Valley's holding on, and then Ferris gets a little bit closer. And when things got within a touchdown, I was texting with my guy Chuck at D2, and I said, this is going to get a little sticky here for Grand Valley. And you know what, to their credit, when Avery had the big run, I kind of felt like that was the dagger.
Absolutely.
And it was just a huge moment. And I mean, he's just a big fellow to be trying to tackle. He's athletic as heck. And just a really great game between the two, and some huge plays. And I think a memorable game for anybody who watched it.
Absolutely. Abe called him the A-Train earlier on. I don't know if we can take that nickname away from the man who is the A-Train wearing the number 40, right? But the reason that I wore number 40, at least when I was playing, but an honorary A-Train, we can give him that, Avery, because like you said, he gets his shoulders square going north and south, and that's a big dude. It's a big load to manage over there. But
that wouldn't be bad seeing Abe take him on one-on-one and practice. I want to see some of those reps, see how that turns out. Yeah,
for that one, him or Anthony over there, that linebacker crew, I mean, they balled out.
Yeah, no doubt.
But moving on the national slate a little bit, talk about a bit of a offensive explosion. These guys did it a little bit differently than Grand Valley. Over there in Harding, with no completed passes, they put up 41 on a Ouachita defense that we have just simply not seen that before. 41-10, they pick up that win, and seemingly the GAC as a whole. Talk about that one.
Yeah, that was kind of the nightcap. I had a full day watching games, and
I bet.
It was 10-3 at half. It wasn't exactly a modern art masterpiece in the first half. It was a battle of field goals, more like a Earl Scheib paint job. But then as we moved on to the second half, Harding was able to kind of get that running game going. They did a few times where they looked like they were doing like a sweep to the right and brought action back to the left and got watched out 2 times for about 30, 40 yards a pop. And then all of a sudden the dive play for Harding started opening up and getting 5 to 7, 8 yards. And at that point, when you're down a few scores and the other teams run an option on you, that's just not a real fun day for the defense. I mean, it's like trying to get a gorilla off you. And so Harding just kind of kept on with that. Kind of an interesting last minute or so of the game. Harding is up, comfortably 25 points or something like that with under a minute. And they have a chance to take a knee and call it a game at their own 40. Instead, they go ahead and run a reverse that goes for a long score. And it kind of had one of those looks like, is this a little bit of twist in the knife, or what's going on here? And when the coaches, talked a little bit after the game, I don't think they were exchanging recipes. I'll put it that way.
I would have to agree with you on that one. Not to discredit that Harding defense at all either. I mean, you hold that offense 3 of 13 on third down, and so now you have this lethal, I would say, combination of your defense can't get off the field, your offense can't stay on it, and now you're in this everlasting cycle of just, I mean, I would assume just pain, like triple option. I've played against enough of those squads, man, that you know exactly what they're going to do. The challenge is go out there and stop it.
And it's like playing a running clock.
Yes.
And then the way Harding does it, it's funny. They basically call the play initially. They come up to the line, they back off, they look at what you're in, they reevaluate everything. And the way it takes them a long drawn out process somehow makes it all worse. But it's pretty entertaining to watch. I mean, the fact that they threw one ball all game, didn't complete any passes, it kind of tells you what you're in for with them.
Absolutely. And then as far as, I mean, obviously the conference moving forward, I mean, they had 430 yards in the ground the other day. That is just a absurd number. Looking forward, the rest of the conference, I don't want to say blow over games. I do believe they have, was one of the Arkansas squad, the Jennings.
They got Southern Arkansas
this Southern
week,
Arkansas.
Kobe. Yeah, who's only a one-loss team.
Absolutely.
Just came off a win against Henderson State, which I frankly didn't see coming. And Southern Arkansas can score the football. So I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. If Southern Arkansas somehow wins that game, don't be shocked if they make the playoffs. I don't want to get ahead of things here, but they don't have a whole lot left on their plate after this Harding game.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, a tall task for them, but like you said, if they pulled off that win that over a Henderson team that we've seen already pull out some quality wins this season, then it feels like there's a little bit more parity in that conference, I guess, in particular than I expected going into the year, and maybe more than some others expected. Another one, though, and it's someone who's in the top 10 who was usurped this weekend, West Florida, and that offense that at least against Division II opponents this year has been prolific, and I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. Let's just say they're ridiculous and not good for opposing defenses. West Alabama didn't care about that at all. They held them to 6 points. They win 10-6. Talk about not exactly an art form out there in the football field, but quite the gritty opposite.
Yeah. When you take a look at this one, I mean, just kind of a popcorn fart of a performance for West Florida. I mean, all of a sudden, you're expecting Pee Wee and company to really light it up. And, their running game wasn't all that successful. And he just didn't have a real good day, to be real frank. I'm sure he'd tell you the same thing.
Yep.
And, their defense is strong. But, if I take a look at West Florida the last 3 years, they've kind of started a trend where they've gone from 45 points a game, 42 points a game, and now they're at like 33 points a game. And in the Gulf South, your offense is going to have a little bit better firepower than that, because I mean, they got a tough game upcoming this week with Delta State, and they're going to have to show well or run the risk of potentially getting themselves kind of on the bubble, which isn't what you would expect from West Florida.
Yeah, and I watched a good portion of that FAMU game, and that defense, the way they were able to bring pressure and get back there to Pee Wee and disrupt them. I think West Alabama might have been taking some notes, because the way they were able to keep that offense off schedule was pretty exceptionally. But the thing that's crazy, too, is you look at John Giles' stat line, 7 catches for 147. The dude, under whatever circumstances, just manages to be the number one guy over there. And it was funny because when we had Pee Wee on just a couple weeks prior to these performances, I asked him, I'm like, and he gave me a very correct coach speak type of answer, but I asked him, who's the guy in this room that's separating them? Now that you lose Durden, who was the dude over there, who's been separating themselves as wide receiver one? He gave me the, everyone's got their own specific. You could have just said it was John, man, right there, straight out. Did he probably know that? Who knows?
He's been one of the top wideouts nationally this year. He transferred in from Virginia Union. And the challenge is, though, if you take a look at this last contest, Kobe, is they weren't able to complete many passes to anybody else. And so that challenge comes into play as well. And, they kind of live by throwing the ball down the field a little bit. When you take a look, his average yards, per is pretty good. And so when they're not able to hit those shots downfield, they're not necessarily kind of that short precision offense where they're just kind of chipping you here and there. And just a real tough day at the office for them.
No, 100%, man. I would agree with that. And that defense, when you have a defense like that, the way they've been able to saturate that D line with some top transfer talent from around D2, a couple of those guys being Gliac guys that we saw shipped down there, under Coach Mello, who was also at Davenport. You can see the ties kind of in there, dragging down some of that top talent. But when you have a defense like that, you're going to be in every game. It's just a matter of is that offense gonna show up? And as of late, we just don't know. I'm sure, like you kind of said, though, they're going to bounce back. They're going to be making plays. We know they're going to be they're going to have more than enough motivation for this weekend when it comes to playing Shegog and company, who are going to put up points on the ground and in the air as well.
Outstanding upcoming game, no doubt about it.
No, I'm pumped for that one. But let's take a dive into the NSIC a little bit more now in particular. Mankato, Bemidji, still top dogs. Both made their way back into the top 10 now, I do believe. Bemidji cracked back in at number 9, is it now?
Yep.
So, feels good to probably see them back up there. I think between them, Gliac, and I guess, West Florida. West Florida's out of it now, correct?
Well, they're still in the mix because that game that they had against FAMU won't count against them for playoff selection purposes.
Yes, I'm just talking in terms of the D2 kind of top 10. I was going to say Gulf South represented, but
for the top 10, it kind of depends on which one you're looking at. Of course.
True.
Because obviously we've got our own. You have obviously the coaches version of it.
Yep.
And in ours, we essentially have Mines, Grand Valley, Pitt, Mankato, Ferris, Delta, Harding, Slippery Rock, Bemidji, and Benedict. Mm-hmm. And I got to be real frank with you. I took a little bit of exception to the coaches poll. I'm not afraid to say it. They have Ferris number 9. There's not 8 other teams in this country who can beat Ferris State. I'm just putting that out there with an exclamation point. We have them at 5. We dropped them out of the top spot, obviously, but
of course,
let's not kid ourselves. This is still a really good Ferris State team.
Absolutely. I, seeing the wrong end of a 78-3 victory on the Bulldogs' behalf, I would have to go on your side and believe that the things they're able to do personnel-wise, whether it be offensively or defensively, are some things that, we talk about on this show a lot, that Division II teams in general are not able to do. The depth that squad has, especially in the trenches, the way they're able to dominate the line of scrimmage, for the most part, we've seen exceptions to that so far this year with some top-tier competition. But like you said, no doubt through the rest of this year, that team is going to be playing with 8 chips on their shoulder.
Don't be counting them out. Yeah, no. Don't count them out, Kobe.
Absolutely not. Hey, you ain't got to tell me, man. You absolutely do not. But on to Mankato, on to Bemidji. Mankato, still very much that team, that top dog in the conference. They finish Bemidji in what was a very close one here just a couple weeks ago. I guess kind of the biggest point for me from them the last 2 weeks, I think Wayne Cavati, in one of his articles, had said it, is that Shem Butler-Lawson Jr. looked human. And his stat lines haven't been jumping off the page. Still big contributions. We had him on the show. I absolutely love talking to him. But that running attack from them, maybe not quite as potent, at least, as what we had seen those first couple weeks.
Yeah, I got a chance to see Shen week 1, and I chatted with him after the game. And he's something. I mean, trying to catch him in space. I mean, and he's a physical runner, and he's kind of the best of both worlds. But he's had a little bit of a downturn here in the last few weeks. He had 4 fumbles within the span of a 2-week window. And then obviously he's been under 100 yards each of the last 2 contests.
Yeah.
I think teams are frankly keen on him.
Absolutely.
And because Mankato is not dynamic through the air. They've got some great athletes on the outside, and they'll throw some fades and things of that sort. But I think teams are saying, you know what, we would rather you have to beat us that way than just letting you run through the middle. And you look at Moorhead, for example, who's not known for being a great defensive team. Moorhead 2 weeks in a row, whether it's Mankato or this game against Sioux Falls, both defended the middle and said everything else made happen, but it's not going to be in the middle. And I think Mankato kind of stuck with the run game against them a little bit. I'm still not convinced that Mankato won't be able to have a lot of success with Sheen the rest of the year. But right now, it's kind of a little bit of a pause with regard to his production.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned Moorhead there. They're, to me, the anomaly in this conference right now. You look at, I wanted to talk about Bemidji and their passing attack because they are second in the conference right now with Alt back there. He's been having, obviously, a kind of career year last year and has built on that this year. He's had some very great games, but Moorhead is just that, at least in the passing attack, on some kind of steroid. I don't even know. The way I reacted to that box score against Mankato and what Strand and company have been able to do over there, when, like we talked about earlier, you know what's coming, good luck. Because they are airing the ball out. I'm surprised his arm doesn't just fall off halfway through one of these contests.
Yeah, watching Jack Strand and his group of receivers, none of which are, I don't even think 6 foot tall. They just go and they battle for 50-50 balls. They fight like crazy. They know that they're going to get the ball a lot because when they run the ball, it's basically almost where they see such a light box that they feel like they have to go do that. But otherwise, they're going to throw the ball on you. And this last week, they were in a dogfight with Sioux Falls. They were down a point at half, and they only had 3 first downs the whole first half. Then they lit up the skies the whole second half. And, it's kind of like one of those, if you don't get them right away, they're going to keep coming at you. And they're really impressive to watch. And Steve Lockway does a heck of a job with his squad. He basically makes it, Kobe, a game of 7-on-7 is really what he does.
No, that's kind of what it felt like watching it, and the way that, I guess when you drop back 60 plus times a contest, you're going to get pretty comfortable in that pocket, but that's what he looks like. I mean, against a really premier defense, you sit back there with that level of composure and you're just slinging the ball around, not only slinging it, the amount of turnovers he's had for that many pass attempts.
Right.
I mean, knock on everything, but that is incredible. That's incredible to watch. We talked a little bit about the parity at the top and that top tier of the conference. Moving down, though, from the kind of Mankato and Bemidji, who seem to have separated themselves a bit. You look at teams like a Duluth, like a Augustana, like a Wayne. And I saw, I guess on the stream, but as far as watching my team goes up close and personal, Wall Jasper and what he's been able to do with his feet on the ground. That Duluth team still very much a scary foe, even after a little bit of a surprise loss to Wayne State.
Yeah, we mentioned Avery Moore earlier from Grand Valley. For people who are in Michigan, there is another version of that in Minnesota, and it's Kyle Walljasper. Except Kyle Walljasper might be a little wider than him.
Little shorter, a little wider. Think same amount of space, just compacted.
Yeah, he might have a little more Abe Swanson build in him.
Yes.
And but when he comes around the corner, there's not a lot of safety signing up for that duty. So but Duluth right now, they lost to Wayne State. I think that you could take Wayne State. I think you could also take Duluth and Augustana and all kind of put them real tight in that second tier. Now, Augustana currently is unbeaten, but they also haven't beaten anybody who's kind of like one of those top end teams. They haven't played anybody in that group yet. Now they will this weekend. I'm going to be heading on across town over to that game. I live in Sioux Falls, so it's an easy trip for me.
Sweet.
So I'm really interested to see the physicality that Mankato is going to bring against a team like Augustana, who can really chuck it, but are also physical up front as well. They just haven't proven it to the extent that a Mankato has in terms of long, playoff runs and so forth.
Is this going to be another year where we see, not automatic, but assuming Mankato and Bemidji are going to make it into the postseason, this is going to be another year where we see 3 or 4 of these teams out of the conference that get bids?
If I were to put my crystal ball out there, because we're not far from getting regional rankings, which is
very
kind
close.
of where I think we're about a week away, where they start kind of putting at this moment in time, what would the playoff picture look like? And it's every week, it's your resume to that moment. If I were looking at the crystal ball in Super Region 4, which includes the teams down in Texas, the teams in Colorado, and then my conference, the Northern Sun, I think you're looking at Mines is going to be the number 1 seed. I think you're going to look at West Colorado, who has undefeated right now, still has to play Mines.
Yep.
I think they're going to make it. So that's 2 teams out of 7 right there. And I think that there's going to be 2 teams that make it from the Lone Star as well, would be my guess. I'm going to say a Permian Basin, and then either Angelo or Central Washington.
I have agree. A feeling I think that's a great pick. We had the chance to have Coach McCullough on here, and what he's been able to do with that team down there is nothing short of special.
Yeah, they're kind of like the new hot chick at the dance. And
they kind of are, man. They didn't know what to expect from them coming into this year, and now, they're hot on the scene. They got a barber shop in the football facility. I mean, this place is going somewhere.
But then that leaves me then with, I think, maybe only 3 Northern Sun teams. Okay. I think 4 could make it, but I think you've nailed down, Kobe, the top 2, in my opinion, and that's Mankato and that's Bemidji. I do think they're a little bit of a cut above. Then who's going to be that next team? Because Augustana's got a slate of tough games coming up. So it's either going to be an Augustana, a Wayne State. Right off the bat, I'm looking at those 2, but Duluth is not one to count out. So that's where I think we're going to, kind of see that makeup. If somebody from the Lone Star really falters in that group we mentioned, then maybe we're looking at 4 teams from the NSIC.
Absolutely. And the team that, I thought might have been in the conversation, at least even a couple weeks ago, is that Texas A&M Kingsville team that's taken a couple tough losses, especially with their defense, their defensive secondary that's been, I think, talked about a lot in that conference. They've been almost pushed to the side, and I think UTPB had a big part to play in that, and another squad down there in West Texas that we've talked about a bit on this program that has been on the wrong end of a couple ridiculously close games. So the competition's been great in that conference, and certainly no givens for them. But Whit, that's all I got from you, man. I really appreciate you coming on. I had a blast talking to you.
Hey, great having you on. Good luck with everything, buddy.
Of course. I appreciate it. Have a good night.